So when we dream, when we kind of see something, that is a part of us that speaks this language of the visual. It's almost a parallel internal language. And I don't want to talk too much about it because we do see it. And we call that, sometimes we call it the language of intuition and the language of imagination. And you know, I wrote this book many years ago on creativity in everyday life. We talk to people about how do you get this aha? How do you know what to write, what to draw? Well, all of these people had ways of accessing what we're now, thanks to Betsy, calling the Milky Way brain. But they could access this creative wellspring, and they had many techniques, often visual, that they would go to, they would imagine a visual picture before they'd write, before they'd sing, before they, you know, whatever their creative outlet was, a visual would help them get to that point of action. So that's another thing that we like to say is that visuals help translate the Milky Way brain into action. So insight is, this is something else Betsy said, I think very profound. Insight is not just, oh, I've thought about something. There's action embedded in it. It's like, I've got insight, now I can act on it. And those ideas, those creative ideas often come to us in pictures.
You know, as you're talking, I'm thinking about what it's like for babies. They don't read, they don't write, and yet they communicate so wonderfully. They let you know when they're hungry, when they want to be carried. They express their needs very clearly, and both of us are mothers. Yeah. We know it's happened to us. We've had this communication which is visceral in our, and so we've had this way of communicating with other people which has nothing to do with words or symbols, and we managed to do that. So I really feel it's so fundamental to us as being human, and in a way, just like the telegraph, you know, the telegraph had to, okay, you can only send, you know, Morse code, certain very limited bandwidth messages. Today, the new bandwidth limitations that have restricted us to writing are just broken. We can do so much more. We can have videos, we can have audio, we can have communication about the complexity of systems where we show the systems in motion in ways that was never available to us when we had to write everything on paper and pencil. So the power of visual communication is just beginning to, and you're one of the leaders in pioneering this frontier.
Well, I think you've hit on two very important points. One is about the complexity, and that is the case right now. There's so much complexity. We're so cerebral. We have to, as you know, be agile and change and move. There is not time to document. So what's happening is that people are using visuals as a way to, we call, Bonnie and I, compressed communication. You can get a lot of information very quickly to people. As we know, people will look at the visual journals after a meeting and they'll remember because of that cognitive dual coding. They were there when that picture was made. They remember what they were thinking and what was happening in the room. And that is very, very powerful for people. So yes, I mean, you've got the complexity, and then that's the reason why I think this conversation is so important. Because yes, visuals are everywhere. There's YouTube, there's video, there's illustrations, there's cartoons, there's so much. And it's tempting, or it happens, that sometimes visuals are used in a more, I don't want to say careless, but maybe perfunctory way. Just somebody thinking, oh, we should throw in some clip art, or, and that's, it's always good to have some eye candy. But the more deep way of creating imagery that resonates, that captures, that holds, like, in a way, you know, you see an eye and the word imagination, that's going to stick with you because you've really conveyed more than you could with just the words. So that combination of words and images in a certain way is very resonant and powerful. So learning how to use visuals more intentionally, I think, will really help, especially the leaders who need to be conveying a lot of complexity. Using the visuals in a way that is that shape of thought, that is our ancient language, rather than, you know, just being entertaining, which is also nice. But yeah, I think that that's a movement now. And there's many leaders in that, Edward Tufte, David Sibbett, Bob Horn. We know a lot of these people who are really helping us to use visuals very intentionally and for the greater good.
So you're giving me a big aha, which is wonderful because I'm seeing this word intuition. And what I do know is that somebody who is a master craftsman no longer has to think step 1, step 2, step 3. They do it unconsciously. And when they look at something, their intuition tells them, is this right or is this wrong? You know, like Michelangelo, he said, the statue's in the stone.
Yeah.
But for us, we just see the stone. We don't have that intuition of a Michelangelo that sees the shape of the David in the stone. So what you're saying is that visuals can be a language that taps that powerful intuitive ability and can link separate people's intuition together in order to get a collective aha and insight that is in fact not available through our rational brain. Let me take this a little bit further. So Daniel Kahneman wrote an important book called Thinking Fast and Thinking Slow. And in that book, he talked about how we learn things through thinking slow. A baby learns how to smile, how to get food. We learn the alphabet. But then after a while, it moves into thinking fast because it becomes intuitive. When we're reading a book, we're no longer reading A, B, C. We're reading whole words. And then sometimes we're really getting the whole gist of it all in one. So what you're saying is that visual thinking is starting to allow us the quick connection between the thinking fast between people. Whereas up to now, science, journals, the way we've communicated has been through that thinking slow mode. But in fact, once we've got shared intuition, we can shift into thinking fast, and we can use pictures to help us get there where the words are slowing us down. Did I get that?
It's very well said and very astute, and I have not heard it phrased that way, but I think you're right, and it resonates with something that I just read about how experts categorize information. They might have a memory palace in their minds, but it is by the essence and the gestalt. It's not a lot of details put together, but it is the ability to see the whole of an idea, and that's how experts become expert, is, as you say, the details fall away. And then you're right that if you have many people who are sharing these images together, then you're stitching together not just information, but intuition and something at a meta level, a context. So they're creating a shared context that way. And I think the way you said that was very, very eloquent.
I want to pick up on something you said, which is the memory palace. Okay. Let's go into the story of the memory palace. I understand it this way. Maybe I remember it wrong. But there was a dinner party in Rome 2 millennia ago, and it collapsed. And the room that they were all in, a whole bunch of people. But one person escaped, but they couldn't recognize all the other people because their faces were destroyed by all the rubble. But they said, okay, who was here and where were they sitting? And it turned out he tapped his memory palace. He remembered who was sitting on my right, on my left, and all around the table. And that was really when I think humans got to realize, wow, our visual memory is so acute. We aren't consciously remembering that stuff. It's just there all the time. What a powerful instrument that we should use more effectively.
Yes. Absolutely, and I think in a way that's what these visuals are. We created this one just for this wonderful conversation today. And then I think about, like, why did this happen? Why did we do a spiral? Well, spirals are about learning. So when we think back about our conversation, we'll probably think back that here are these people with all these different ideas.
Yeah.
And then as we talk about visuals, we're opening and expanding. So this is kind of a memory palace for us too.